You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.
The conversation started early around here. Jason Connery's looking out the window like a little kid, impressed with the new studio offices. He hasn't been with us in a while, and that's a shame. He is the director of such epics as 51, Pandemic, The Devil's Tomb, and his new movie, Philly Kid, is running like crazy all over the cable channels. I can't get away from it. Must be something to do with our PR effort.
Absolutely.
Yes, but he is here to give us a little bit of a class and culture. And to add to that mathematical equation, actually, is, well, a guy who's responsible for everything from, he had a role. Well, he got a start, actually, as an intern, a production intern on Mary Poppins. Jumped ship, started telling the studio what to do, became a big shot on Tron, The Black Hole, tried to save The Watcher in the Woods, unsuccessfully, I might add. But is responsible for many, many great projects, part of the Superman franchise, and he's even done his share of pirate work with the epic Cabin Boy. I'm leaving out a big credit of yours that I always mention. What is it?
They're all so big that I don't know. I think it's a little film about a guy...
Want a monkey, that line, or?
Yeah, who had a friend who was like a Western gunslinger, and a monkey is a
right.
That's
what it was.
I'm thinking of it. It's Start
he
something.
had a very, very heavy hand in Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. Didn't do the third movie because he wanted to do Tron, so he tells us, over coffee sometimes.
No, I knew the third movie would be no good.
Right, yeah, they were not onto a trend there. It was just god-awful.
What the hell? Little teddy bears running around in the forest. I said to George, no, don't go that way.
Don't go. George,
Revenge of the Teddies.
Don't have teddy bears in the woods. That is the great Harrison Ellenshaw, and as you know, he is one of our favorite veteran guests around here, and he's dressed, quite like the studio exec he once was. Blazer over Hawaiian print shirt on shorts. Awesome.
Yeah, it's the anti-Hawaiian tropical look. I don't know what that means.
Yeah, the anti-Hawaiian tropical.
Yeah.
Usually when
I'm
call you...
I'm not anti-Hawaiians, by the way.
No, I know.
Don't get me wrong.
We don't want to go there because we do know you put a lot of time. Every time I call you, you're in Hawaii. It's a rough life being Harrison Ellenshaw. Also joining us is our friend Joel Navarro of Disney. He is one of the producers for one of our upcoming Combat Radio Halloween lockdown events, which actually begins next week. Halloween starts 6 weeks early with us, and it's going to be fantastic. We're sending some great Combat Radio agents. Were actually in Amityville last night. That's secret, but I'm blowing the roof off that one. And Harrison's shaking his head going, what are you guys doing?
All the way back in Amityville? Is that in Massachusetts?
No, but we are going to Salem, Massachusetts for a little witch trial work as well. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. I may need your services of the two of you. See, Connery's interested, and you're ready to just walk out of here.
Well, yeah.
He knows the franchise is dead.
The franchise is dead. Halloween won't save you, Dettenmeyer.
So many franchises are dead. Let's not get into that quite right now.
Well, aren't you responsible for killing a few franchises yourself, Ellenshaw?
Wasn't my fault.
Weren't they wasn't Black Hole 2 on the books before you decided to wreck the entire ship at a big
the
spiral
first one killed the
CGI
franchise.
I love talking about, it's more fun when we talk about the disasters than it is about the movies that really went well with the audience, to try to explain it.
This is an Arsenio. I mean, we're not selling success here.
No. And
neither
is Arsenio. Neither is Arsenio.
I mean, why do you have to sell success? It's success, for God's sakes. You got to sell failure.
Exactly.
That's been my lifelong ambition.
Let me go around the room real quick. Connery, you're a pretty interesting guy.
Oh boy, there's a setup.
Yeah, no, it's true. And we rode in the elevator up, and you go, I got some stuff to talk about, but I don't want to tell you.
Well, just that I this week, and I've never done this before. When I did the Philly Kid, I had a casting director called Mark Teschner, a lovely guy, did a great job, and he rang me up and he said, "I've got a part for you," because I act as well sometimes. He said, "I've got a part for you in General Hospital. It's a great part. Will you come in and do it?" I've never done a soap before. I said, "Sure, yeah, I'll come in." I've actually only once. I did Doctor Who years ago where they had multi-camera. So I went in there, and I got to tell you, I take my hat off to those actors that work in the soap because it was so fast. I mean, they shoot 45 minutes of TV a day.
Yeah.
And you've got reams of dialogue, and they're telling you, pick it up here because the camera's going to pick because they camera cut, obviously. So everything has to be, I mean, it's just unbelievable.
It's
how
precision.
I just spent my whole day wondering what I was meant to say and where I was meant to be going. And at one stage, I actually called the other character by my character's name because I was so confused about what was going on. I said, "I'm so sorry, Sebastian." Oh no, that's me, Franco. But lovely people. It was great fun. But really. To get a performance when you're thinking, you got to use both sides of your brain. It's a really I think anybody who's going to go into acting and wants to, in England it's more theatre based, and then you kind of step up into film or TV or whatever. Whereas here, the soaps, and I know they get maligned quite often, but honestly, it's a great way to learn your craft.
I'll tell you, one of my favorite people is a regular on General Hospital. You may have met him on the day, or you may know him, Ian Buchanan.
I didn't know him until he came up. He was lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely guy. And Finola I've known. Finola Hughes I've known. She used to date Michael Praed, who was the Robin Hood, when then I became Robin Hood.
It's all so incestuous.
It's
just ridiculous business.
Anyway, it was a great day, and thank you, Mark, because it was a real eye opener.
What'd you play in it? Did they make you a crazy guy? A
not
patient
crazy.
who's going nuts? Guy who keeps the ER hostage?
I was Sebastian Leeds, and I'm a
Oh, that's
art.
so pompous.
I'm very pompous.
You're an art collector.
I'm an art dealer, my friend. Not a collector. Not a mere collector.
I collect yachts, my friend.
Exactly. Yes. My first line was was to Roger Howarth, who plays the part that James Franco played originally, and he's taken over, and he's a great actor. I mean, just
James Franco has got other things to do.
He's got other things going on,
Another Spider-Man movie.
I think perhaps General Hospital had to let him go because he wasn't really giving it.
He wasn't cutting it as an actor.
He wasn't cutting it. Yeah.
Buchanan has a hilarious story. I'll share it quickly. Where he met Gary Shandling because they shot next to the Gary Shandling show stage.
I loved that show.
That was a great show, wasn't it?
I loved that show.
And Harrison will tell us how much he probably despises us momentarily, but.
Right.
He walks out in the parking lot. Gary Shandling says, "Are you funny?" With that Gary Shandling kind of look, and Ian goes, "Well, I don't really." Although he's hilarious, but he's so dry. Yeah. Anyway, he started doing both shows on stages next to each other, and at one point they did a crossover episode where they're on the Gary Shandling show watching General Hospital, and his mom kind of falls for the Ian Buchanan character, right? So and she fakes illness, so then she wakes up and she's in General Hospital. Right. And they're all, and Gary Shandling's at the desk, and they're all doing that music cue where they have that look before they cut to commercial break.
Right.
Is it, what is,
Yeah.
Anyway, Gary's character finally gets his mom out, and they start walking to the elevator, and Buchanan and Finola Hughes walk out, and she goes, "Was that Gary Shandling?" Just there. And he goes, "Oh no, Gary Shandling's not that ugly." And you can see it on YouTube. And if you follow General Hospital or Shandling at all, even if you just love hilarious moments, that's one of the best crossover in television history. But I'm glad they hired you. They're smart to do it.
No, it was fun. It was fun. And I don't know whether I'll do any more, but it was
Sebastian Leeds.
Sebastian Leeds.
Let's all give ourselves soap opera names for the rest of the show.
Yeah,
Harrison, you already have a soap opera name. You're Harrison Ellenshaw.
Harrison
Lord Ellenshaw.
Yeah.
Oh,
and you're actually
El Jefe Grande.
El Jefe Grande.
As I'm known around the house.
El Diablo Grande. No, let's be real. Do you still have English citizenship? I mean, I know you came over from. No, you're an American.
I was American. I could have had dual citizenship, but then I found out that it wouldn't get me out of the draft. So there you go.
Yeah, there's that little thing called the draft, especially when Nam kicks in.
Yeah, well, that was before you were born, but
I'm sorry.
There was a little thing going on there.
Yeah, there's a tiny little war in the jungle. And now we know what it was all about because it's all resorts and beachfront property. So now we know the real reasons all the fighting. Communist my ass.
Yeah, we thought it was oil, but in the South China Sea. No, it's about getting babes down by the palm trees.
Yeah, I mean now the Mekong Delta is like one of the hottest spots in the world to hang out and relax.
Yeah. And I'm ready to go back.
Yeah, tourism, big business. You were on last time with me. We had Rolly Crump on, the Imagineer who had had animated part of Peter Pan, done work on the Haunted Mansion, Tiki Room.
God, that's a great name.
Yeah, Rolly Crump
on.
No, the eyes. Yeah.
Roly Crumpon.
Roly Crumpon was
Yeah.
on. And,
Coupon or
Coupon,
crouton.
Crumpon.
but you know what was great is both of you had done. He did time at Disneyland, as had you.
Time. That's an interesting.
Well, you
Yeah,
had a
way of
different
putting
agenda. I'm sorry. What did you say?
Everybody's done time.
Yeah.
At
And now
Disney.
Navarro's pointing at himself.
Yeah,
'cause
now he's
in the-
going. Yeah, when does the parole board take a look
Yeah.
and just give me a break here?
It's that magical time and place.
You know, you're you're top exec there. You got to watch what you say. We're all free to come and go as we like. But
Oh, you think that?
you have
but not
a
so.
ball and chain on you. No, you're still tied to him.
Well, of course, I get a little check a month, a little pension with Mickey with his hands out, going, "Hey, you sucker! This is all you got for all that hard
No,
work."
is this all we're gonna get from you, you bum?
Yeah.
You know, this is Disney.
He's always smiling. You just wanted to punch him in the face
But you know
once
what
a
was
week.
what was interesting about the interview is that was the first time. You know, a lot of times, people will interview Rolly Crump as Rolly Crump. But what was great is, and that's one of the fortunate breaks we have on the show on occasion is you have different personalities with similar projects in mind or the projects they work together on, and they come together on the show in a conversational sense. And that happened then when you were like, hey, do you remember? And he was going on about both of you knew Walt Disney. And he was talking about how Walt would take him aside during a photo op and be like, well, what are we supposed to be talking about? And Walt would be like, damn it, I don't know. They're just shooting a picture. Why don't you tell me how the Dodgers did last night? And they'd be talking, and then like the caption would read like, Walt Disney discusses Peter Pan with Imagineer Rolly Crump, or something grand like that.
I think that's the toughest job in the world, caption writing.
Oh yeah, I do it daily. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
We're all Facebook friends. You see it.
And you prove my point because your captions generally suck.
Exactly. As opposed to Harrison's, which are like me doing more great stuff as the greatness that is Harrison Ellenshaw and the Ellenshaw thing. You will never be Harrison Ellenshaw around here now. You're El Jefe.
Yeah.
El Jefe Grande.
Grande.
Oh man. But it's funny because it was kind of like a unique insight into Walt Disney, and then you had the experience of basically working at the studio under his son-in-law Miller, who played a year for the Rams. So I'd like to point that out when people like to bash him. Yeah, and you said that you were responsible for kind of trying to modernize the studio. You said, look, it's no longer about Herbie Goes Bananas or Herbie Goes to Monte Carlo, which Connery and I love those movies.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's still about that for me.
Yeah, can we do Herbie Goes
Yeah.
Bananas too? Herbie versus Blackbeard, all those movies.
Yeah. I never saw Herbie Goes Bananas. I loved the title.
Yeah, well, it's one of those.
Yeah.
But
I met Dean Jones once, actually, at a cocktail party that had Ian Buchanan. He was there too. Ian Buchanan, what you're going to find about him is
he's everywhere.
He's like that guy. He's
That
like
guy.
the most interesting guy in the world. He's hiking through the jungle one minute, and then he's at your cocktail party at the Lux Hotel the next. It's very
Interesting.
strange.
it's like Waldo.
He is like Waldo,
Waldo,
but in
yeah.
a hip kind of cool sense.
Are you saying Waldo's not hip?
No. Well, yeah, sorry.
You got the cane, you got the beanie. I mean,
Yeah, he does have the beanie. But we were talking about how like you had to Black Hole, which we have a director in the room, and a good one at that. So you Black Hole. You get the script for the Black Hole, Connery. There's no ending to it. The last few pages are blank. What do you say? And Harrison says, the studio.
Pass.
Harrison tells you privately on the phone to pass on it. But hey, it's a
You
directing
call your
gig.
agent and say, "What the hell are you doing? Send me this."
You want to direct Anthony Perkins and Maximilian Schell and all these
Ernest
geniuses.
Borgnine.
Ernest Borgnine. Let's not
I
forget
worked with
Cabby.
You.
I worked with Ernest.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah. He was a lovely guy. I mean, this was actually, kind of right before he died, and he was still so enthusiastic about what he did.
Yeah.
And he still loved to sort of chew the scenery, and you had to bring him down off the ceiling. But he was just so great to have on set. That kind of positive, really,
He
lovely
was
guy.
the mayor of Universal City for a while, and I met him at a Universal attraction opening, the original King Kong thing, the animatronic, years ago, and he was there to kick it off because he's the mayor, and it's like a no joke position.
Really?
And I was like, Universal City, that's what, 4 square blocks basically,
Yeah.
but and plus the park. But I mean, what a cool job! I'm the mayor of Universal City. I wonder what that pays. But it's kind of a cool
I
position.
don't know. Yeah. I mean, this is an animatronic King Kong.
Well, originally, before they did the Peter Jackson Tunnel of Doom,
okay.
there was like an animatronic feature where the tram stopped on the bus.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
King
yeah,
Kong's
yeah,
going to
yeah.
rip us apart, and everyone
Big
acts
hand
scared.
came in
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, something like that. And, Harrison's looking very perplexed right now. It's funny, I just said mayor of Universal, and the mayor of Disneyland is Mickey Mouse. What an inside political, con job that is.
I have, I still, Joel will correct me, I'm sure, but I still don't quite understand any of the branding anymore. I mean, it's Mickey's Halloween party.
Yeah.
And so, but it starts tomorrow,
Yeah.
which is like
Tomorrow's open night.
6 months before Halloween. But we got to just grind this stuff out. And so Mickey is Mickey. He's not scary, but how can we make Mickey a little bit scary? So you give him fangs.
Well, and
I mean, it
implying
looks-
he's some kind of bloodsucker on
like-
the American populace and
Yeah,
marketplace.
well, I don't know. Are we supposed to be scaring the children or reassuring the children?
Well,
Can you explain that?
Let
to me?
Navarro have it.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you kind of look at Mickey and he's scary. Yeah, he has those fangs. I mean, but he's cute. He's a cute vampire. I mean, you got
It's
a lot
a
of the
friendly
vampires coming out,
Halloween
like,
experience.
like that Twilight thing coming out. Yeah, sparkly vampires. You can't have a vampire with big Mickey ears.
We
I
certainly
mean,
don't
it
need
looks
any
good.
more sparkly vampires.
That's
Unless-
why.
Try
A
try
Mickey vampire,
explaining
man,
that
he
to
just
a
ups the
4-year-old. It used to be Tim Burton's, Christmas, Halloween.
Do you want to tell
Christmas
some of your
thing.
working relationships,
With
Tim
Tim
Burton
Burton?
stories?
Oh,
Do you want to
please.
get into that? Or let's cover the Disney thing first before we get into Tim, because I know that's a subject that Let's get back to the original question. Black
Wait,
holes. The
what-
black holes.
what-
Connery, you have the
He
black
he
holes.
got
thing.
off the hook, so bring him back on the hook.
Yeah, and they say there's no ending to this. How do you end the black hole movie?
It's a black hole.
Yeah, you have to go through it, right?
Yeah. You have to go through it. And you have to say, okay, what is on the other side?
Do you?
Absolutely.
And they did, didn't they?
Yeah.
And what was on the other side?
Didn't you
Some-
design all that, the hell stuff? And wasn't
No,
that
no,
you?
it got it.
Your father did it, and when it didn't take with the audiences, he said you designed it.
Well, he would throw me under the bus daily. But I'll make it short. But basically, it never had an ending, and I decided I got dragged in. Actually, they had something like 26 writers on it.
That's a lot.
They would rewrite this thing to death, and excuse the pun. But finally, they decided, and Ron Miller said, I can't wait for the ending. Let's just do it and see what happens. So
That's an executive you want in your corner. A guy says, "Don't bother to write it. Just go out there and shoot."
Well, to his credit, and he gets a lot of flack, but to his credit, he really wanted to see the studio, come into the 20th century.
I think we all admire him for that movie.
And he showed a lot of guts,
Yeah.
committing a lot of money to do it, and everybody, the board was against it, Card Walker was against it, but I kind of pushed it through. So I did some rewrites, which I wasn't supposed to do because I'm not a member of the Writers Guild, and so fine me now, I dare you. And I said that the thing about it, and I'm not a writer, but I had had enough experience in the film industry to see that this was basically a very boring story. It was about people who find a spaceship on the edge of a black hole, and they end up going through the black hole.
Maybe, not to interrupt you too much, but
go
just
ahead.
enough for me to say something of my own. Maybe this is why I'm no longer at Warner Brothers, but I think the setup is actually pretty good on the movie.
The setup is great, but you've got to have the tension. So I came up with the idea, well, where did the robots come from? He didn't build the robots. They were actually crew members who have been lobotomized.
And you came up with that concept?
Yes. And how do you find out that happened? Well, there's one robot who has a limp because he was a crew member that had a limp. And that's when Ernest Borgnine discovers the guy has a limp. And so I wanted it to become more of a mystery, not about what's on the other side of the black hole, but what is it about this ship that hasn't responded to anybody is a lost ship, and Maximilian Schell being a crazy kind of lunatic, and make it something that was interesting, that was mysterious. And the only way you could add certain things, you have to add levels to films, to movies, to theater. They have to work on more than one level. Otherwise, they're just kind of boring.
Speaking of Maximilian Schell, did he say one line of dialogue that was scripted, or did he just show up and say, there's that famous moment where he's like, "We are going in, through, and beyond," and he's like pointing in the opposite direction.
Right. And then when you put together the composite, and you had to decide where the black hole was going to be out the window, it's like, well, we should put it here because he goes there and there and there. Is it going to move outside the window?
And then there's that weird kind of dichotomy where he's like, "Maximilian, time to sanitize the ship of our guests," or whatever he says. And then he turns to the girl. He's like, "Protect me from Maximilian."
Yeah. No, I thought it was brilliant. A lot of that was written. A lot of it he came up with at the time.
Well, he's the perfect Nemo in a way. I know he's challenging to be around, or was, but he's still with us.
He was, yeah. Well, maybe I wish he would come on the show. But
I've asked him, actually.
He will do 3 hours about aspect ratios, in film, and God love him. He never spent any time. He was a real loner. I guess. Well, you got to consider Maximilian Schell, Oscar winner, Ernest Borgnine, Oscar winner. I mean, for Disney. This was a classy group of folks.
That's a lot of artillery for a Disney movie.
It's a lot of artillery.
In the 70s.
You had visual effects Oscar winners.
Let's not forget the voice of Slim
them.
Pickens as the robot that's for some reason from the deep south.
Don't even get me started. I hated that whole thing. Old Bob. It probably what took. My father lived a nice long life, but he would be alive today if it weren't for the 2 robots. It killed him.
Did really?
He was so frustrated because he couldn't come up. He basically designed the look of the picture, and now we had to come up with robots. Well, this was right after Star Wars and R2-D2 and C-3PO. So everything you did was like, you're ripping them off.
Right.
So eventually my father did this design for the robots, and I said to him, "Dad, looks like the Michelin Man." I mean, it was just all this bumpy kind of stuff, and that was it. That put him over the edge. He said, "That's it. I give up. Go find somebody else to do it."
And did you, or did you just go with what?
Well, yeah, we went to Walt Disney Imagineering and got them to basically design the robots. The problem was when they designed them, they said, "Well, this is the size they need to be," and I said, along with others, They won't even fit through the doorway. They're too damn big. They need to be. Look, R2-D2 was a miracle that they could make it work in Star Wars because none of the radio control really worked. It wouldn't go in a straight line. So if you look at Star Wars, you never see R2-D2 go more than 3 inches.
Right.
Right, because he kept running into walls.
He was a nightmare to work with too.
Yeah. And so we had this. I said, make them little tiny things, and
make them fly, Dad. Make them fly. And it's funny how Lucas has ripped you off conveniently, where R2-D2 suddenly had rockets the whole time and could fly when he conveniently. Fly. It's like Batman. Like I think I got a thing for
batteries
this.
Not
Matrix.
Yeah, the Matrix.
Oh, that annoyed me when suddenly he went, "Oh, I can fly."
Yeah.
So why'd you fight 500 guys?
Just
fly off.
Fly, right?
Yeah. And I agree, and that's the biggest problem. So we also had the whole issue of weightlessness, and that's why when the probe ship, the Palomino, lands on the Cygnus and goes down the elevator. I don't know why it had to go down the elevator, but anyway, it was a nice effect.
It looks good.
Clunk, and
he goes, "Gravity."
Joseph Bottoms goes, "We have gravity." Oh, thank God! No more wires for another hour and a half.
Yeah. We have gravity.
We have gravity. A classic line.
You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer. right here on LA Talk Radio.